how struggle in your business is your superpower, right? How struggle in your business is your superpower. So what do you do when you find yourself in that place where you're like, I can't seem to embody my own teaching sometimes. I feel like I'm a fraud. I feel like I'm a failure. I feel, sometimes some of us get to that point. And we all, if you're an entrepreneur, we've all been here. Okay, so it's not a shame thing. It's just a reality check that we've all been to that place where we're down on our knees and we're, strapped for cash, right? And we're strapped for confidence. Okay, raise your hand if you've been in that place where you're like, oh my God, please, like I'm so dedicated. I'm so committed to this vision. I'm in, but you're like your bank flow. Hey, Tasnuba, your cash flow is like, dude, please, somebody like, give me something to work with here, right? So what happens when you're in that place, when you're struggling to kind of find that confidence, that belief, that trust in that place when you are struggling? That's what we're talking about today, how struggle in your business is your superpower. So let me know if you have struggled in your business or if you're struggling right now, right? And sometimes you find it hard to kind of get out of that place. So raise your hand, let me know. And I mean, it's all of us, right? But just allow yourself the permission to be there, because that's the other thing I think is so important. When we let our natural humanness be part of our business, yes, we're a leader, we're a goddess, we're a coach, but we're not, we're also human, right? And so what do we do in that moment of struggle? So what I want to ask you, I'm going to ask you a series of questions because I always do this as a workshop, okay? So I'm going to ask you a series of questions to hopefully allow you to kind of see where you can take yourself when you're in that place of struggle, when you're down on your knees in prayer and whatever it is you do. I mean, it could be literally or figuratively speaking. And you're like, please, I just need another sign. I just need, that cash flow that's going to move me to the next thing. So question number 1, what is the chronic emotion that arises when you are stressed? So just take a moment to think, okay, when was the last time I was overwhelmed, stressed? Maybe you're with the kids, maybe your work, maybe whatever it is, dogs, whatever it is you do in your day-to-day. What's the chronic emotion that you experience? So write in the comments, what is it? And just let it out. Sometimes it's fear, sometimes it's anger, sometimes it's frustration, sometimes it's confusion, sometimes it's doubt. There could be a whole combination, but what is it for you? Sometimes it's worry, right? You kind of spin out into that worry place. So see your pattern. That's always step number 1. If you were to work with me, we always look and then we meet each other where you're at. Okay, so like, where are you at now? Because it's wonderful to philosophize and give you strategies and tell you A, B, C, but if we are not fully conscious and able to sort of process where we're at now, it's very difficult to kind of move forward, because that chronic emotion is just going to come back and lead the way, right? So if yours is worry and I'm like, okay, do A, B, and C, and your chronic pattern is to worry, you're naturally going to go into the worry, energy. So what is it for you? Let yourself identify it. Write it down in the comments, okay? And those replay peeps, I know a lot of you are actually coming afterwards, so I want to hear you, okay? So I'm not just talking into the void. So question number 1, what is your chronic emotion when you are in these high levels of stress, okay? So number 2, when you're in those high levels of stress, what do you do with your body? Okay, so just take a moment. You can even just go to a flashback, because I'm sure there has to be at least one time during this week that we've experienced stress, or maybe we're experiencing it on the daily. Who knows? Depends on what's going on with you, right? And it's, again, no judgment. But what do you do with your body? Do you clean? Do you, oh my God, I have to take a nap? Do you like, do you kind of like busy yourself with stuff? Do you maybe go for exercise? What do you do when you're in that high level of stress? What do you do with your body? Okay, so answer that question. What do you normally do? What's your go-to? I tend to kind of like, I like to wash the dishes because it just gives me a moment and it sort of makes me clean my hands. And then I also like to cook and clean. That's sort of like my default, okay? If I'm really organized, I go and I exercise. So what do you do when you have that chronic emotion, you know, at your highest level of stress? What do you tend to naturally do with your body? And sometimes it's like a fidgety thing where you're just like, you know, you do something, right? Everybody has something, right, that we do, where we're like, we do something. So what is that thing when you're stressed that you do, okay? Where do you go in your mind, right? So when you receive that kind of chronic stress, of worry, where do you go in your mind? And even literally look at where the mind goes, because your thoughts are forms, okay? And they're forms of energy. Where is it? Is it up here? Is it back there? Is it, you know, where do you go in your mind? And and last question, what happens to your energy? So when you're in that place of chronic stress, of that place where you're stressed and you have that chronic emotion, what happens to your energy? Does it drain out? Are you like, are you wired? Are you paralyzed? Like what, are you gripped? Is your energy gripped, right? So what happens in your energy? Okay? So question number one, if you missed it, is when you are stressed, what's your chronic emotion? Like what's your favorite place to go, right? Anger, doubt, worry, fear, you know, despair, you know, there's all kinds of like variations. So let me know in the comments. I'm not saying anybody write the comments, so let me know in the comments what that is. Okay, sometimes the comments for some reason doesn't work. Claudia, hey, you're here. I want to hear your answer, Claudia. When you're in your, when you are in stress mode, what is your emotion? What's your chronic emotion, right? Is it worry? Is it fear? Is it despair? Is it, what is it for you? So write that in the comments, okay? All right. So based on your answers, right? Now you can start to fully get conscious of what actually happens in the body, in the mind, and in the energy. So whatever you know, that struggle is for you, whatever that struggle is emotionally for you, because how do we experience struggle? We experience it through emotions, right? We're like, we experience it through some kind of intense emotion, right? And so my question and my talk today is like, well, how can you make that your superpower, right? And so here's what we usually do in the body, okay? So number one, first, we have the chronic emotion, and we think, the first thing we do is we think something is wrong with us. We think we are inherently broken, okay? So that's the first thing that we tend to do when because we have a negative bias as human beings. When we have, you know, we're in the struggle and we're in the emotion, we tend to think, oh my God, something is wrong with me. So that's the first thing. So the first thing that happens is you set the alarm to your nervous system, and the nervous system's like, okay, something's wrong. What do we do? Okay, either we're gonna fight it, we're like, resist it, stop doing that, stop being worried, right? we fight it. We flight it, where we're just gonna distract ourselves. We're just gonna right? We sometimes, and I have to admit this, sometimes yoga can be a distraction that doesn't necessarily help us circle around back to where we need to be. So it's a great and a wonderful way, especially when in the yoga asana, to kind of calm the nervous system. But then we sort of float off, right? And we don't necessarily come back to, okay, so what is this struggle? Where is it? What does it need to teach me? Okay? And then where does your mind go? Because whenever we're in struggle, we have very often, what I notice is we have this catastrophic thinking, right? And we sometimes we let the mind kind of run off into this like fantasy world. Let me know if this happens to you, right? And we focus, and this is what happens, we focus on the problem, okay? So let me back up. I want you to see what you do with your body, right? If you tend to, oh, I need to go to sleep. Or you tend to really resist and you're like, oh, you just get like upset. Or you kind of flight. You're sort of like, I'm out of here. I'm just gonna sort of distract myself. I'm gonna clean the house. You're gonna do all the other things that that's not really a solution to the problem. You're gonna just like distract yourself. So if you were to work with me, the very first thing we do is, as we're doing it actually right now, is to get grounded in the body. So because the fight, flight, or freeze tendencies are our default, it's not necessarily getting grounded in the body, but when we start to actually allow ourselves to feel what it feels like when we're in struggle, right? What it feels like in the body. What is the posture? What is the movement? What do we do to just feel what's happening? And I know a lot of yogis and coaches out there, they're like, okay, I get that feeling, you get it, but are you able to continue to allow yourself into the continuity of that feeling and let it unfold and allow that space and tenderness to let that emotion be experienced? Okay, so week number 2 in our program, we first feel and experience the chronic emotion. So if your chronic emotion is worry, we really start to look at, well, what does that look like? What does that look like in your face? What do you do? How does that manifest physically in the body? And can we actually give it space to express itself? That's what grounding in the body is. And then once we kind of really get to know what it's kind of like, the way it manifests, then we can actually consciously choose, right? So like even right now, if you were to like just do a posture, right? Just do a posture that kind of like is slightly like tense, right? Your body knows what that is. Yeah. So your body is going to be like, oh, this means angry, so I'm going to be angry, right? And so, the body just, so the mind's like, oh, we're angry, right? But if we get to consciously get grounded in them, like, oh, this is what and without necessarily letting that lead, we start to see, oh, this is what I do when I'm worried. Oh, right? And it's almost like a scientist, you start to look at that, you take a step back. And then you can consciously transform that in the body. Okay? So getting grounded in the body, feeling the body, what we have to understand is feeling is a verb. And the beauty about feeling is that it is eternal. So what we tend to do when we have worry, or when we have fear, or when we have doubt, or when we have anger, is the energy goes all up here, and we go up into the intellect, right? And we try to solve the problem up here somehow. But we live in a body, right? And the body is here actually as a tool. That's why why we do the asanas and all that, and the movements, right? Is because the body is the actual tool. So the first thing the body is going to tell you is, how does this physically manifest? That's the first thing it's going to tell you, right? It's showing you, hey, something's going on here, right? And so so start to welcome them in versus thinking, oh my God, there's something wrong with me, oh my God, right? It's just, oh, interesting, right? And because the body is so malleable, we can continue to allow ourselves to go into the body and choose, right? And choose what it is we want, how we want to ground. And literally, physically, what we teach you is to literally ground here on the ground. And then what happens when you teach yourself and practice staying there. And that's what the yogic practice helps us do, right? Is to stay there. Because in the body, is where eternity lives. Because as human beings, we kind of don't really, it's hard to kind of like, eternity, what is that? It's a concept. But to experience eternity, remember, I don't remember, but like, you know how you hear the kingdom of God is within, right? When you allow yourself, and when you get grounded literally in present time and in a continuity, the answers come. And so that's why, you know, it's easier said than done. And that's why in our coaching program, you know, as your coach, I guide you there, and we continue to go back there. We continue to go back there because that's where the answers lie, right? So number 2, the other thing we do in week number 2 is we learn how to process now those emotions. So now that we see how it manifests in the physical body, and then we start to train ourselves to kind of look at how it manifests, and then start to slowly shift ourselves out of that through conscious grounding in the body, right? Because sometimes we can ground ourselves there, but we don't necessarily move out of the default. Right? We don't move out of the chronic emotion. So we almost just stay there. And we almost get caught there without staying there and getting curious about it. Welcoming it as if it's a possibility, as if it's a doorway. Versus, oh my God, there's something wrong with me. Yeah? Does this sound familiar? Does this make sense for you guys? That, you know, sometimes we right away feel that chronic emotion, and because it's been something, a deep wound from a long time ago, and somebody had taught you that this is when something is wrong, then, you know, your body naturally goes into that, right? So it's like if ever in your past, your mom was a worrier, and she worried and she stressed out, and so then your interpretation is like, uh-oh, something's wrong, okay, ooh, right? And so you relive that moment over and over. And what we weren't taught, or what we didn't realize, is, oh, something's wrong, but now this is a doorway to a possibility. So you begin to shift out of there's something wrong to, ooh, you know, there's a problem, to what is a possibility here? So this is your invitation. The body is always an invitation to go a little bit deeper. So what is the invitation now? And allow yourself to move into that place of possibility. Let me know if this is making sense. Write me in the comments. I'm not seeing any comments. Sometimes for some reason it doesn't show up. So maybe there are comments and I'm like just not seeing them. Okay. And the next question, and I kind of, I talked about this. Oh, here, Claudia says, I love this. I tend to judge myself. When I'm not feeling joyful, okay? I tend to want to walk my dog when my mind is scared, and when I'm stressed, it's worried. Nice, okay? And when in stress, it's worry. Nice, okay? So now, Claudia, you're starting to see the pattern, right? And so now we're going to start to allow that pattern, because again, we tend to sort of like busy ourselves and think we have to get over something, instead of, wow, what if we just grounded in the worry? And how interesting. Oh, it shows up like this. Oh, right, the physical body has a physical manifestation, right? And then instead of the mind trying to problem solve and trying to fix ourselves, trying to constantly fix ourselves, which is a lot of people in the spiritual community do, we constantly move ourselves into this fix-it problem and heal ourselves away, right? To, oh, okay, now what is the possibility? What doorway is trying to open for me here? Because the worry will sometimes just keep you at one place. But what if you step back and say, what if this is a possibility, right? Because all of these emotions are actually preparatory states for something that is you're going to expand into. You know, it's kind of like I was talking to a client the other day, and you know, he was having a baby, and you know, when the news comes and you're like, oh my gosh, you're going to be a dad, your first impression is not always, yay, oh my God, that's going to be great. It's going to be so easy. You're going to be like, oh my God. Like it could be something you've been praying for, right? But all of a sudden when the news hits, you're like, oh my God. When the opportunity hits, especially in your business, when you have the opportunity to expand, right? To use your entrepreneurial skills to find the possibility, because you know the possibility, but that worry place tends to like, okay, no, but this is a safe place, so let's just keep on staying here. But the possibility is like literally right here, and you can see it, and the possibility, because it's new, right? Like if you've never had a baby before, even though you've been praying for it, you're like, oh shit, like I'm gonna be a freaking parent. Like what the hell? Am I actually gonna be able to do this? So do you see? It's an actual preparatory state. So you want to start to see where your mind goes. If it just goes into the problem, you kind of get stuck there. And then it doesn't allow, the energy doesn't allow itself to go into the possibility. And so now the possibility is like, listen, dude, just like one more client, or, do this one thing. Take one more step towards the possibility, right? And so if you give yourself that permission to step towards the possibility and allow yourself to act there, then that's where possibility starts to physically manifest. That's why in our program we always start in the physical body, because if I just tell you that, you're going to be like, okay, that intellectually, that's great, but then the worry is going to be like this. But if you allow yourself to get grounded in the body, if you allow yourself room and space for the worry to kind of exist, and allow yourself to, be interested in that, and then consciously shift it, utilizing the body and calming the nervous system, because the other thing we do in week 2 is learn how to process now that emotion. Okay, let it have some room to process, because if you just kind of stay with the worried and you're like, oh my God, please go away, oh my God, it's just, you're gonna kind of be in that vortex. But if you're like, okay, that's what it is in the body, oh, it looks like that, okay, and then you learn how to actually process it through physical movement, through physical breath, which is what we do in week 2. We learn how to process emotion, super important, right? Then it starts that motion. And then the week 3, what we do is we learn how to clear the mind, because the mind again is in this constant impossibility, right? So the mind, once it gets clear, then it can see that possibility a little bit more clearly, right? And so the physical body is the thing that's going to take you to the next action. You kind of can't live in the world without the physical body, right? So once we learn how to stay grounded in the physical body, it doesn't necessarily mean we're not supposed to have the fear. We're not supposed to be scared. We just learn how to be with it. We learn how to be curious about it. We learn how to work with it and ground it, and then also physically transform it. So if you're like this, can we be like this? I know that sounds almost too simple, but that's the training, because this is an unconscious movement and this is a conscious movement. Are you guys seeing the difference there, right? And so then your next step is a conscious movement. Do you need to go write something down? Do you need to start working on something? Do you need to physically start typing something? Do you need to physically start talking to somebody, right? Or again, are you just leaving the worry all up here, right? Bring it back down. Get grounded. Bring it back down to earth, right? What can you do on this earth, not up in your head, right? So in week 3, we learn how to clear the mind so that the mind can receive that channel, because that's what the body is. It's like this channel, right? And remember when I talked about, when you're with your clients and you're just all of a sudden in that flow state? Why? Why is that? Because most likely, you're doing something with your body, especially if you're a yogi, right? You're grounding in the body, right? You're moving and breathing and processing emotion. And all of a sudden, clarity comes. So sometimes you're doing the process, but you don't step back to actually see what's the process. What is the process that's actually bringing me to that flow state? So this is a beautiful thing. So now that this is how you create your struggle into your superpower. As a coach, right? As a leader, as a teacher, you start to look at, oh, okay, I'm in this struggle now, right? And I'm giving you clues of how to do this. And so can I look at this process, look at it from this place of, well, what's happening in my body? What's happening in my mind? What's happening in my energy? And can I note down that process so then I can then share it with my clients? And then what happens when you share it with your clients, more clarity comes, because like, oh, okay. And you start to see it in the other person, and you start to see where maybe there needs to be some clarity and some tweaks. Do you see? So you literally take that energy, which is actually like this jewel, right? The energy of worry, which is just energy. That's the other thing we don't want to realize. It's simply energy. And it's energy, available energy that looks like worry, that looks like stress, but it's energy. It's energy coming through the body. And when we start to consciously say, oh, this is something available for me, not against me, not, oh my God, if this thing was fixed and not outside of me, right? If that thing were fixed, right? If they were just to do that, if you actually realize all of this worry, all of this anxiety, all of this, movement in the body is actually energy being given to you, because that's really what it is. It's like this preparatory state, it's like, right? Because interesting thing, what happens is when you have prayers, you're like, oh God, please, I need more money, or please, and then energy will like give it to you, right? Universe will give it to you, and then you will receive it, but you will receive it from your default lens of worry, of anxiousness, of going up there. And you don't realize, whoa, wait a minute, I actually could utilize this energy and bring it in. So if I start to get grounded in the energy of worry, in my physical body, know what it looks like, right? If I start to see what I do with my mind, that's all the way up there, and I kind of bring it down. If I start to see how my energy works, maybe it's all, or maybe it's back there, or it's draining out slowly. You let it drain out. So it's this unconscious utilization of energy, right? So if I start to take that struggle and that all of that energy coming towards me, and I take that struggle, it actually becomes my superpower. And you're like, oh my God, every time I'm worried, it's actually universe answering my prayers, and it's giving me the energy, but I'm misreading it, because there was the old wound, old imprint, and I've talked about this before, and I'll talk about it again, I'll repeat myself. There's always these core wounds that we have, and then our body gets imprinted, our mind gets imprinted, and our energy gets imprinted somewhere, right? And we continue to see through that lens of the body. We see through the lens of the mind. We see through the lens of energy. And we misread it because it's this imprint. It's like these glasses we've had on this whole time and we don't realize. So what if every time you experience that chronic emotion, what if it was actually your superpower? What if it was like universe saying, here, take it. I'm trying to give it to you, right? And then you receive it out of the problem and into possibility. And understand that possibility, especially if you're expanding outside of your comfort zone, is going to be something new. And anything new is very threatening to the old imprint. Are you guys seeing this? Okay, I want to hear you. I want to hear you, right? Are you guys seeing this? People on the replay and people are here right now. Yeah, does that make sense? Right? So now you can start to think, because literally all your core wounds are actually these jewels, these rough diamonds or whatever it is in disguise being given to you. And you kind of take them because as a human being, we experience both. There's no human being on earth, even if you're the most enlightened yogi or coach or whatever it is on this earth, that will not experience those chronic emotions in stress. So if you are in that belief that life is here for you, then start to allow it, because I truly believe that we create our own world. Then you can start to take that energy and utilize that energy towards possibility. And then instead of, because this is where and I've talked about this before in, I think, Manifesting Your Reality, in another whole other hour training. Instead of, that taking that energy, what was I going to say? Instead of that energy being just this chronic, thing that you think that there's a problem, you actually go into possibility. And instead of, this is what I was going to say, sorry. Instead of trying to problem solve it intellectually and using the same imprint that was imprinted in the body, imprinted in the mind, imprinted in your energy, you start to do vice versa. Instead of going from the intellect first and then like experiencing it in the body, you go into the body first. You go into seeing the mind and the way it's been imprinted, and you go into the energy. You clear that. That's what I always talk about. You clear the spiritual house. And then you can take the practical actions. So if there's a possibility that says, hey, go talk to that client. She's a potential client. She's waiting for you. Go, right? You clear all that, and then it gives you more longevity. And that's actually, it's like the reverse. Instead of intellectually thinking what to do first, clear all of that. Clear the body, clear the mind, clear the energy. And then you can take action, right, to solve the problem and move towards possibility. Let me know if this is making sense to you guys. Okay, so I'm just going to look at my notes. Okay, so with all our clients, that's basically what we do. We start to just look, and it's such a simple process, but I always say deep does not have to be complex. But the challenge sometimes, especially, and I know this because I have my own coaches, is that we intellectually know something, but especially if we've been in this kind of certain pattern for the longest time, we might know, right, what to do, but it's very challenging to, even if you have your own medicine, your own magic, to sometimes see the little blind spots that tend to happen, right? It's like what my coach always says, you can be the best massage therapist, but to massage your own back is going to be really difficult. And it's the same thing when you're in your business and you're trying to move through your struggle, right? It takes sometimes a mirror to just show you your own truth, because sometimes there's that possibility that's right there, and then your coach mirrors you back that thing that was in your head, and then it all of a sudden it validates and it confirms, like, oh yeah, right, I was thinking about that. But for some reason, because you got so used to listening to the worry, listening to the body, listening to the mind, that takes over, because it's been the thing that's sort of been protecting you in a way, right? Protecting you to stay safe. Right? But then all of a sudden, that little possibility that's new, right? Just like the newborn baby that you, oh my gosh, you didn't like expect having, but you're like okay, right? And when your coach actually mirrors back what I call your soul, right? Your soul's calling, because here you are. We want to discern. Here you are in survival mode, right? And survival mode has been working for you. It's keeping you surviving, right? But when all of a sudden your soul keeps on whispering, okay, go just do that thing. Go just do that thing. Go talk to that potential client. She's ready and waiting for you, right? And you're thinking it, but when the subconscious mind is so strong and so patterned, like if you're used to doing this or this or this, it's almost like a default. If you're used to eating a certain thing, it's like a default, right? But then all of a sudden, when somebody, by repetition, right? By repetition and practice, continue to say, oh, but remember that possibility that you talked about? remember, because that is also repeating itself. So you might notice your soul constantly says, just go do that. When we clear the body, when we clear the mind, when we clear the energy, that voice is always speaking to you. And it's just up to us to really listen and have the courage to say, okay, talk to so-and-so about my program. Okay, right? And so in our program, what we do is we continue to call back that soul's voice. And eventually what starts to happen is that the soul becomes the one in charge. She becomes the one driving the bus. For the longest time, it was the survival. And so we want to discern between survival and soul. Because if you're operating from survival, you're going to do bare minimal. Okay? You're going to do just exactly enough to get you out of the water. And you forget, but wait, above the water and all of the above, there's all these other possibilities. And you're so accustomed to not trying those possibilities that you start to stay on the survival. Okay, let me know if this is making sense to you guys, right? I want to hear you. I'm going to see here because I don't see the comments on my phone. So I'm going to look here. Okay. I don't see it on my computer either. Anyway, so how to take your struggle and make it into your superpower. Okay, so I'm going to review. Step number 1. What's that chronic emotion that happens to you when you're stressed? What is it? Just identify it. Okay? And the problem is that we stop there and then we get paralyzed, right? Okay, wait here. Okay, I see something. Yay! You mean seeing our chronic emotion in a way that can teach us something valuable to help us overcome parts of this struggle and revealing the powerful message to create abundance connecting with our superconscious mind. Yeah. It is a preparatory state. Okay? So now every time it comes, because first of all, you want to identify it, because if you don't identify it and it just takes over because it's the default, it's the survival instinct happening, it's just going to be on overdrive and it's just going to be hypervigilant and it's going to try to protect you, right? So 1, know what that is. Know what that is, okay? And then when it comes, instead of like, oh, okay, worried, oh my God, and then letting yourself drown in there, because I'm trying to survive. Oh, get curious. Oh, what does that look like? Oh, what is it? What happens in the body? Oh, ooh, where does the mind go? Oh, it goes into this catastrophic thing. You're like, oh my God, right? And then my energy drains out, right? And then again, it's going to happen over again. Anytime there's a stressful situation, survival is going to say, oh, I got this. I'm going to keep you safe, okay? So let me do it, right? It's going to volunteer every time, right? Until you actually say, hey, right? Hey, that's what we do physically. So then you allow yourself to consciously ground in the body, where you give it space. It's allowed to be there. We're not trying to fight it. We're not trying to, I'm just going to sleep and just pretend it's not there. Or distract yourself because I'm going to pretend the worry's not there, right? And talk to everybody and pretend the worry's not there, right? Or we're just going to give it space. What do you need? What do you need? Right? And the first thing it needs to be felt. And then it needs to be seen, right? It needs to be seen. Like, what's the story? Oh my God, oh, not this again, blah, right? And then, and so we can consciously, ooh, this again, ooh, this means that it's preparing me. And then all this energy, this overflowing energy that feels like overwhelm, right, is actually, universe saying, I'm downloading, right? But because we haven't cleared this, we're not practiced enough in clearing the spiritual houses, what I teach you, the physical, the mental, and the energetic, right? It's downloading into your body and you feel it as overwhelm. When all of a sudden, if you were to work with me, that's what we would do. We would work on clearing all of those core emotions, seeing the core emotions, clearing it, in the body and mind and energy, and being able to work with it so it can be free, right? Free to express what it needs. Yeah. And then we realize, oh my gosh, that trauma that I've experienced is actually the gift. And it's a gift of compassion. And it's a gift of tools. Because it's very hard if I say, okay, walk on a tightrope and you've never done it. You have to build a skill. You have to, okay, bend your knees, okay, you breathe, you keep a focused point, right? And then, because as human beings we're collective, and because we're channelers, when we have these breakthroughs, then we can give it to someone else. So take that energy in, utilize it for yourself so that you can give it to someone else. And that's your superpower. That's your gold mine. You see? And where a lot of people get confused is, because this is the other thing that we help you in your program, we help you distill your unique expertise. They think, oh my gosh, but everybody else is doing that. And you mistake your expertise like, okay, I'm an NLP coach, I'm a yoga teacher, I'm a certified coach. You mistake your expertise for that. But really, your expertise is what you do. You synergize all of those experiences, right? And then you apply it to real life experience. So you synergize it. That's your unique expert ability. That's why you're able to channel and do this magical thing with your clients, because you're funneling in that energy, that experience through your experience. So it's a combination of your experience and your struggle. Do you see? And both of those things are unique. So don't get confused with, oh my God, I don't know my niche, all that stuff. It doesn't really matter, because nobody can replace your experience and the way you synergize it to meet the struggle, which then equals a tool. And then it's like a toolkit. And that's what people pay for. Somebody asked me, how do I, what do you mean by this gold mine thing? That's what I mean. The assets, right? The valuable things in your service are right in your pocket. So I'm literally giving you the framework here, guys, okay? Because you all have it. I know you do, right? Especially if you're watching this, you have it, but you maybe have not learned, right, how to work with when you're in the ups and downs of entrepreneurship, that roller coaster, which is normal, right? You haven't worked on riding it. You're kind of like, oh my God, no, no, not again, no, I don't want to go down, right? You're like, don't make me go down again. But what we want to tell you is like, oh, okay, go down with your hands up, because that's going to give you the freaking process, right? So your unique experience, okay, funnel all of your NLP, yoga, meditation, all of those retreats, whatever it is, you funnel it through your unique experience, because you've had some past core wound and trauma, okay, that so many other people out there, not exactly like yours, have had, right? Maybe working with a toxic parent, maybe working with, something like that, right? And then you synergize all of your expertise to meet the struggle. And then that becomes your tool. And then you put it in your toolkit, and then you give it to your students.